Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the breakout session, Time is Ticking, What You Need to Know Prior to the Implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Also, thank you to Platinum Partner Erie Insurance for sponsoring this session. I would like to welcome Jerry Rhinehart of Rhinehart & Associates. Jerry serves on the National Faculty of the Society of Certified Insurance Counselors and is also on the faculty of the Florida Insurance School. He is a director and former president of the Tallahassee chapter of CLU and CHFC. He is a past national board member of the Society of Certified Insurance Counselors. Since 1985, he has conducted more than 1,200 classroom, convention, and webinar programs for insurance, legal, and accounting groups. Please help me welcome Jerry Rhinehart.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And since I have been officially announced, the coat comes off. Since this is somewhat of a heated topic, and folks, if you don't mind, I'm going to stay away from politics. Is that okay? I'm just going to try to stay with the facts, talk about what we know of the law, what's going on, the changes. Anybody go on the Exchange website in the last day or so, try to see if it's working? Is it working?
It's better.
It's better? Okay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about that and talk about some of the updates that's gone forth, mainly for the agents so that your clients can have an idea, because a lot of them are very confused, just like a lot of agents when I do programs around the country are somewhat confused. Now, from a standpoint of complexities, no, this is pretty simple. This kind of is a nice little flow chart of how simple this all is and everything. Yeah, it is very complex, folks, and we've had a lot of changes. We've had things take place that Washington has changed, Health and Human Services, and so I'll talk about some of the major ones. I can't cover a lot of them, obviously, in 1 hour, but we'll talk about some of the key things. One of the key things to understand, and I'd like for you to just imagine that I have a huge, giant dumpster right over here to my left. We're going to fill up this dumpster with a bunch of taxes over the next, from 2010 to 2020. So we've got a lot of key taxes, you can see in the middle of this slide. Why? Because we're going to need a lot of money from the standpoint of subsidies that's going to be going forth. Now, this provision, this law, has 93 key provisions in it, and it will be enacted over a period of 10 years. Obviously, the big year is just 2.5 months or so away. But we've had a number of things that's already come into play that have had some impact on you. So I'll be spending a little time in regards to what's going on with the coverages. Every one of us have got to buy a qualified health plan. You might just make a note. Just write down QHP. QHP stands for Qualified Health Plan. And for my P&C agents, you know all about ISO forms, don't you? I know, Tom, you know all about ISO forms. We don't have such a thing as an ISO version health insurance policy, but come 1/1/14 we will. And that's what we refer to as a qualified health plan. So in a sense, you'll have mandated coverages. Every state's got to follow it. Now, your state can add to the coverages. They cannot take away. So think of it basically as like a standardized property and casualty form that we look at today. So it's going to have an impact on all of these various entities up here, your employers, whether you're large or small, it's going to have an impact. Now, if you're a large employer, obviously you're going to be looking at some potential taxes that I'll talk about. Those taxes are going to go in the dumpster too, as you'll see. So even some of you might have this morning stopped by your fast food restaurant and you got you a little quick breakfast or whatever. If you look up there at McDonald's, you'll see that they have listed the nutritional content of everything up there. And this is not because McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's wants to do that. It's because this law mandates that they have to. So there's a lot of things that do not really come into play regarding insurance that's in this law. Now, one of the very best websites that I think you might visit is Kaiser Family Foundation. This is a basic overview of the site itself. When you go to that site and you do a quick check of the timeline, the timeline obviously is from all the way from 2010 to 2020. You'll have a little overview, and as the slide shows there, if you click on any of those years, it's going to show the 10, 15, 20 or so provisions that's come into play in any one year. When you click on 2014, you'll bring up a little basic name of each one of those provisions. And the one that I want to spend a little time on is the one I have on the screen. It's called Health Insurance Premiums and Cost Sharing Subsidies. And you see what I've got there in red. And I'll make this a little bigger so we can see it on the screen. But look what it says. It says starting 1/1/14. If your income is low enough, you're going to be eligible, not guaranteed you're going to get it, you're going to be eligible for a subsidy or help with your premiums. So here's what it says. It's going to provide refundable and advanceable tax credits. And so that we actually have two things. If your income is low enough, you're going to get help, one, with your premium and your cost sharing subsidies. So this is your out-of-pockets, your deductibles, your co-pays, things of this nature. And so you can see there where it talks about in the third and fourth line, premium subsidies are available to families and obviously individuals. And then you see it shows 133 to 400% FPL. I'm going to define what is 400% FPL shortly. If your income is low enough, you get help with your premium. The more your income comes down, the more help you get. Now, where you're going to get this help, it's going to be coming from the dumpster, if you will. You're going to be able to get subsidies, and that's what people now are going online now trying to sign up for the exchange coverage, and they get their subsidy. Now, notice what it says at the very end. You see the 250 FPL. If your income is down to 250 and below, now you're eligible, in addition to help with your premiums, you're eligible to get extra, you're going to get coverage for your out-of-pockets. So your deductibles and co-pays and things of this nature. So I'll be talking about that a lot more as we go for the hour. So if you're above 400%, so if your income, you, your family, whatever, your line one of your W-2 or your 1040 is above 400%, you have no chance of receiving any subsidy whatsoever. If you are under 400, but above 250, you're eligible to get help with your premiums. If you're below 250, now you're eligible, in addition to your premiums, to get help with your out-of-pockets. Once you go below 133, now you're going to qualify for Medicaid. The more you come down from 133, the more you're going to have less out of your pocket. Eventually, you'll have virtually nothing out of your pocket from a standpoint of being on Medicaid. What's the rationale of the law? Well, as you can see on the screen, your state, North Carolina, 47% receive their coverage through an employer. And you can see federal is about 49%. This holds pretty true around the country. What the law was really crafted on was the bottom line, the uninsured. 15, 16, 18, as much as 20% in some states have no insurance. And so the government says we want these people to have the availability of insurance. Well, we can't afford insurance, so we're going to help you with your premiums in that situation. And that's the rationale of this. Two key terms I want to talk about. One is medical loss ratio. Imagine if we had a dollar bill, and I tore that dollar bill into 80 cents and 20 cents. What MLR basically says is that if it's a small group or an individual plan, the carrier has to spend 80 cents or more on QMEs. QME stands for Qualified Medical Expenses, as defined by IRS. So they've got to spend that money. 20 cents is left over for all of his other expenses. In the past, what we have done when a carrier had a very, very good year, and they made, so we strip off a nickel. So they only had 75 cents that they paid in claims. They had a nickel left over. Well, you invest in a company, you're going to get some dividends. We put some money in reserves. Now what do we have to do with this nickel? We have to give it back to the individual or entity that paid the premium. So if the carrier has an 80 or 90 cents MLR, well, they lose money. If they have 60 or 70, have a great year, they got to give it back. MLR does not apply to ERISA plans, folks, fully or partially self-funded. This is the great opportunity that agents need to look at from a standpoint of health insurance and marketing to your carriers, marketing to your clients. And don't really have time to get into the ins and outs of the self-funding, but that is really a great area to look at. And in other programs, obviously, I'll spend more time on that. Now, the FPL, we talked about that a little bit, to 400%. So that's what comes into effect next year. This is the number, and you've got the site there. I think if you don't have the outline printed, I know it is available that you can print the outline. In other words, the PowerPoints that I've got here, it is available that you can go to the convention site and be able to print it. But if your combined family income is under 94.2, you have a family of 4. Now, when we say income, you, your spouse, how about your kid, 17 years old, working at McDonald's and making a couple of thousand a year? We're going to include that too. So we take a look at all of the income from your family. If you're under 94.2, you're eligible for a subsidy. If you're over, obviously you're not. Median household income here in North Carolina is a little bit lower than the national, as you can see there on the screen. Let's talk about some of our timeline that we want to look at. As I said, starting in 2010, working all the way to 2020, we've got 93 key provisions that are coming into play. Some already into effect, big years the next year. Co-ops, one of the key things in regards to co-ops, the government in the law had a lot of money that they were going to make available to all states, and the way it was put out there was, I like this term, forgivable loans. Wrap your brain around that term, forgivable loans. Sounds a lot like a grant to me. And we had 17 states take advantage of it to build a co-op. Now, many of us are familiar with co-ops, food co-ops, rural electric co-ops, whatever. So it's member-run, nonprofits. And so what this was going to be another venue of being able to sell insurance on the exchange in competition with the Blues and Coventry and others in that situation. Your state did not set up the co-op, but eventually they may. Also, we've got, let me back up. We got enhanced use of e-filing. How many of you have gone to a doctor this year and your doctor no longer has, he or she has the clipboard and the pad? They now have an iPad. Folks, it is not because they want to look cool. It is because they have to do electronic filing, medical records filing. And a lot of people are spending a lot of money in compliance on this, and they have to be up and running by next year, otherwise there's going to be some penalties there. So in a sense, the government is going to collect all of this data, all this information on you, and some of you maybe have been to the doctor and heard some of these fairly intrusive questions that they're now asking. Not a whole lot of choice. They've got to do this, and they got to comply with it, and so some of us are a little concerned in regards to the privacy issue there, even though we got HIPAA. From a standpoint of privacy, is it real secure? We don't really know. Now, we were supposed to have this come into effect in March of this year, but it got delayed until just recently. You work for me. I will have to have given you a form, 3 to 5 page form, letting you know that there's the availability of the exchange, that you're eligible perhaps for a subsidy, how this all works, if I provide insurance or I don't provide insurance. Originally, there was going to be a $100 per day fine if you didn't do this. But that got, because they had no way of really following up on how to do this. So on September 17th, that went away. But now you need to make certain that you give this out. Now, I'd like for you to write down this site at the top there. Jones Day ACA Exchange Notification. I'd like for you to go there, and you see it's the third one down. I was looking at it this morning. It's still there. This is a very good explanation of what you're to do, as well as it has 2 links. If you provide insurance, if you don't provide insurance. It's got the forms right there. And what you can do is go bring that up and see what you've got to give. And so it's third one down. And this is what it looks like there. And it said you have to start doing that on October the 1st. A lot of people had no clue. And so they didn't do it, but you still have to. But we've got clear definition now as the Department of Labor has come out and said, okay, there's no penalty. So on the September 17th, it said there's no $100 penalty. You still need to go and make this available, though, so says the government. Tax change. Well, remember, we're going to fill up our imaginary dumpster with a bunch of taxes, our 21 major taxes. And in 13, we had some taxes that came into play that's affecting you and I. First of all, many of us in a prior life might have sat down and tried to do your own taxes. Anybody ever went through that little fun and game, trying to do your own taxes? It only takes about 1 or 2 and you don't do it anymore. And you come to that line item on your 1040 where it says, if you have medical expenses that exceeds 7.5% of your adjusted gross income and it wasn't paid by an insurance carrier, you get to deduct the excess. Remember that? Nobody ever qualifies. Evidently, one of you qualified because they changed it from 7.5 to 10. That's the only thing I can figure. So that went away. Okay, we've got our rich guys in here, all right? We got Tom over here. Tom's my rich guy. No question about it. Tom's my rich guy. Now, what is the definition of rich under ACA? If your income as a single person is over $200,000, or if you're married filing jointly, it exceeds $250,000. Now then, Tom, in this hypothetical, is going to look at 2 additional taxes. First of all, he's going to get to pay a little bit more on his Medicare Part A tax, 9%. Tom, don't ask me why it's not 1%, why it's 0.9, I have no idea. Plus, if he has unearned income, royalties, rents, dividends, he's going to pay his regular tax. plus he's going to pay another 3.8. This includes capital gains, so you pay, instead of 15% capital gains, you're going to generally be paying 18.8. How many of you are covered under a flex spending account where you work? Did you get notification this year that the maximum you could defer was $2,500? I guarantee you got it. So the most you can put in your medical FSA is now $2,500. It used to be whatever your employer's prototype plan said. Excise tax on the medical devices. Let's say that you make heart valves, or you make some kind of, your titanium shoulders or knees or whatever. So this past year in 12, you had, is it Tim? Dan, I couldn't read it. Dan, last year you had $100 million in gross sales, and you had $95 million on the other side of the ledger in salaries and R&D and insurance and everything. So you had $5 million, paid your tax, pretty good year, not bad. This year you have $100 million in gross sales, but you have $105 on the other side of the ledger. He is still going to pay 2.3% tax on the gross, even though he lost money. This is why you're hearing a lot of dialogue from the politicians going, are you nuts? You mean we're going to owe $2.3 million even though we lost money? But the politicians right now are not throwing in the towel on that one. So that's a big one going in the dumpster. I retired from 3M. 3M and a number of major carriers, companies have a thing that says they'll retire or give me all sorts of post-retiree perks. One of them is my Part D Medicare. It runs $45 or $50 a month. They pay for it. In the past, they've gotten a tax deduction. Look what we're doing to the tax deduction starting this year. We're eliminating the tax deduction. So will these companies do away with providing this as a post-retiree perk? Don't know. Okay, let's look at the big year. The big year is 14, obviously. We're all familiar with that. We've got individual and employer requirements. Now let's make sure everybody understands what the law says. The law says I, all as an individual must show proof that we have a QHP. The law does not say employers have to provide insurance. Forget that. Now, what if you're 65 or older and you're on Medicare? That is a QHP. What if you're on Medicaid? That's a QHP. What if you're an individual or you work for a group? Well, or some company. Do they provide you a plan that's actually considered a qualified health plan? That's the big issue. Let's take a look, first of all, what it says on individuals. So you and I as individuals must show proof that we have a QHP. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at a phased-in penalty. This was what the big, giant Donnybrook with the Supreme Court was. They said, we got to buy insurance, and they had a big problem with it. 26 states had a problem with it, and Supreme Court ruling 5-4 said, yep, the feds can make you buy insurance. Now, if you're a large employer, so you're 50 or more, you may have some issues, as you'll see coming up. The rules are extremely complex, numerous variables, and I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible if I can. First of all, we're going to talk about individuals. All right, so, that's your name? Kristen. Individual, single person. She is compelled to buy a QHP, so next year you've got to buy one. You can buy it either in or out of the exchange, but the exchange is the only place she would be able to potentially get a subsidy. Okay? So she falls under the requirement, and you're going to see a list of those that are exempt from the requirement, and she buys a metal plan. We got 4 metals, folks. We got platinum, gold, silver, bronze. 90-10, 80-20, etc., right on down, okay? She fails to buy one. She says, nope, ain't buying it, folks. You can't make me. Well, it is not a criminal offense to not buy it. You simply have a penalty. And the financial penalty is this. Now, take your time. Your premium might be $500 a month for a good quality plan. The penalty, as you can see, is $95 for the whole year. Take your time. Would you rather pay $500 a month or $95 for the whole year? Take your time. There's not a lot of teeth in the penalty, is there? So the penalty is $95, or as you can see, 1%. So if your income is $50,000, you're going to be paying $500 for the whole year, not $500 a month. Now, what if she doesn't buy insurance and she has an appendectomy? They're not going to turn you away at the county hospital, but you're looking at a potential bankruptcy in that situation. So here's an example. So we've got a family of 4, and you can see $100,000 taxable income. Now, is a family of 4 eligible for any subsidy? What's the answer? No. They're over 94 too. If you're above $94,200, there's no way you can get a subsidy. So this family cannot get a subsidy. So what are they looking at? Well, let me back it up just a little bit. As you can see there where it says $95, then it goes up, as you can see, in 15 to $325. But look where it says half that amount for children under age 18. So in this scenario, you would be looking at $95, your husband would be looking at $95, and your two kids would be looking at half $95 each. So $285. Or 1% of income, there's the $1,000. What might be a family plan for them? $1,000 a month? Could be. So you want to pay $1,000 for the whole year, or $1,000, a month for insurance, and there we go. So let's talk now about the employer. This is the big thing that a lot of people really want to have conversations about is how the employer comes into play. Now, if you're a large employer, 50 or more full-time employees, the federal government has delayed any potential penalty you have for 1 year. But I'm going to show you how the calculation works, and now then, from what they're saying today, this is what we're going to be looking at in 2015. How we define a full-time employee is 30 hours or more. Anybody in here a bean counter where you work? You keep up with payroll and hours and stuff like that? Anybody do that? Okay, we have people occasionally that do that. You're going to have to keep up with this. So if somebody works 30 hours a week or more, they're deemed a full-time employee for that month. Okay? We're hearing a lot of conversation about businesses changing people's hours from whatever they're doing down to 29 and a half. Hearing that all the time? Some of you have seen issues on that. Let me tell you, buried deep in, actually it's absence of this law, but buried deep in other rules. The attorneys are going to seminars and they're reading stuff, salivating. Do we have any attorneys in here? I'm not talking bad about attorneys, I'm just telling you facts, folks. What if you switch my hours from 40 hours a week to 29 and a half hours? I'm now a part-time employee, aren't I? But you just picked on an old guy. We pick on a female, pick on race, creed, color, whatever. Do we have HR issues by changing hours? This is another potential problem, folks. You better not be wading out there in the deep weeds or switching people's hours before you talk to somebody and get some guidance in regards to the HR type stuff. This can be real issues. So anybody under 30 is deemed a part-time employee. If you have a business and you never hit 50 employees in the entire year, you are deemed a small employer. You have zero chance of any penalty. Absolutely none. But if you're 50 or more, well, you need to pay attention. So let's see what it says. First of all, it says that in 14, and the red star means it's been delayed until 15, if you have a large employee business, 50 or more FTEs, and you do not provide a QHP, what is the rule? Well, I'm going to read you the rule, and we're all going to roll our eyes because when you read the rule, you go, oh, what does that mean? Then I'm going to give you an example. It says if any, so you guys are working for me, we've got 55 full-time employees, I don't provide insurance, and your income is low enough, you go get a subsidy, and she's the only one, folks. She is the only one that gets a subsidy. Look what she tags me with. Now, where can she get a subsidy? Where's the only place? The exchange. So she signs up for a QHP through the exchange. She gets just a little bit of subsidy. It doesn't matter. It just says you get a subsidy. What's going to happen is you're going to tag me with a $2,000 penalty for every one of my employees. And I had how many? 55? Oh, but we're going to exclude the first 30. Huh? Oh, and it's going to be on a prorated basis. What if there's only 2 or 3 months you get a subsidy and some months you don't? Let's take a look at how this would work if for the entire 12 months this was what happened. So I've got 65 full-time employees and you get a subsidy for the entire year. Or maybe you and 10 or 15 others. All it takes is one. Here's what's going to happen to me in my situation. I'm going to get hit with, you've got 65 full-time employees. We take away 30. I've got 35 too many. I just got hit with a $70,000 non-deductible penalty for not offering a QHP. That's if I don't offer insurance. And many of us are familiar that there's potential penalty if you don't offer. How many of you today, and I still have people that sometimes do not know this, are not aware that if you do provide a QHP, you still might get hit with a penalty? How many of you that's news to you? That is true, folks. A lot of people, a couple of years ago, almost everybody raised their hand. Let me show you how this works. Oh, and by the way, this is not called a tax. It's called a shared responsibility payment. I feel a lot better than when my check goes in my big giant dumpster over here. It's not called a tax. That's what it's called in the law. Let's take a look now. We change the scenario. I do provide a QHP to you guys, a bronze plan, and you still get a subsidy. Well, let's see if you get a subsidy. Here's what the rule says. So we have a large employer, 50 or more, and I do provide a QHP. Look what it says, that if she gets a subsidy, we're going to be looking at the the lesser of $2,000 or $3,000. Let me go through the math. It'll make it a lot simple to understand. So now then, large employer, I do provide a QHP, but you get a subsidy. Now, I know some of you are pretty sharp in here and say, wait a second, if you provide a QHP, she can't get a subsidy. Hold on. You're going to see that there's a chance that she can. So I'm going to clear that up in a second. Now, with a group of 65, I might be paying what, $500,000? What do you think? Maybe more? I take a tax deduction on the $500,000 premium. She might still tag me with $45,000 penalty. So here's how it would work in that situation. We do the same mathematics at the top. Let's say that we had 15 like her got a subsidy. Their incomes was low. They went to the exchange. They got a subsidy. So 15 times 3,000, you could hit me with the lesser of the two. So in that situation, I'm going to be paying a tax of $45,000. Now, I've shown you the problem. I'm now going to show you how to solve it. I'm going to show you how to escape it, okay? I don't like showing problems without showing you how it can be solved. First of all, I want to introduce you to the problem with part-time employees. Because a lot of you say, well, I'll just change a lot of my people to part-time. Well, let's just say that we've got Joe's Burgers and Shakes. Joe has 3 locations. He has 40 full-time employees. All right. Any problem for Joe? At first glance, you're correct. There is no problem for Joe. He's under 50. Oh, but he's got 20 part-time. Well, let's see what the rule says here. The rule says, all right, so now then you're going to be my bean counter. You got to keep up with payroll and everything. Let's say that these 20 part-timers, high school kids, college kids, seniors or whatever, and we know that they don't all work 24 hours a week. We know that's not right. Some of them work 8, some of them work 20, but we're going to make it real simple. In this hypothetical, what she would have to do on a weekly basis would be to keep up with the part-time hours. So in my hypothetical, I have 20 part-time employees times the 24 hours that you can document each week. That's 1,920 hours for the month. The rule then says we divide by 120. 120 is 4 weeks, 30 hours. That's where we get the factor of 120. We come up with a thing, what's known as a full-time equivalency of 16. And what we are now required to do is add that 16 full-time equivalency to our 40, and look what we've just done to Joe's Burgers and Shakes. Joe is now a large employer. Joe's got issues. Let's see what happens if Joe does not offer coverage. Now he's got 40. Now you say, wait, no, he had 56. No, he doesn't. He has 40. Because once we stop the calculations on our part-time employees of their hours, we forget them. So he's got 40 full-timers, and all it takes is one, since I don't provide insurance, and we're going to tag him with a $20,000 penalty. Let me show you how to solve this problem. Look what we did. We took away 30 from our 40. Joe needs to switch 10 more of his full-time employees to part-time, doesn't he? If he only has 30 full-time, Joe has no chance of a penalty. I don't care if he's got 150 part-timers. That's the way to solve it. If you are a large employer and you're not going to provide insurance, never have greater than 30 full-time. That's how you solve that one. Just take a look now at this one. Same scenario. We got 40 full-timers, and he does provide insurance. Now what happens? Well, she and 14 others get a subsidy. They're going to tag him with a $3,000 penalty. And so now we're looking at $45,000 there, so we're going to take the lesser of the two. I'm going to show you how to solve that one too. There's a very simple way to solve that one. And it's buried deep in the law, but you just have to understand how it works. I think probably this type of industry probably does not provide insurance. Is probably what I would run into, and so he'd be looking at some real issues. This would be a perfect example of some of the ones that you insure today. If you've got a business like this, they're going to be very concerned, because I find that a lot of times the attorneys and CPAs really don't know exactly how to solve the problem. So you can really be an advocate for them in that situation. I'd like for you to write this down. This is a very good narrative, and if you go on the association's website and you print out the PowerPoint, you'll see it there. But go to Towers Watson Healthcare Bulletin 7943. It's a 9-page document. It's a very good narrative on part-time employees, seasonal employees, variable hour employees, and give you a nice little read on how that basically works. And if you want it, and if you don't have it written down when I move on, I'll be glad to give it to you when we finish. And I will, when we get to the appointed time, we will stop. And if I'm not finished, I'm going to, if you guys need to leave to go to golf or whatever, that's fine. I'll be here for questions, or if we need to finish it all up, I'll get it all taken care of. Now, how many in here own a business? I own a business. I own Rhinehart and Associates. There is no associate. It's just me. It's me and my computer, and that's it. I sell life insurance and long-term care, and I do talks like this and write articles and everything. But Rhinehart and Associates just sounds so much better than if I named my business Just Jerry. Just Jerry just doesn't have a good ring to it. So Rhinehart and Associates. Why do business owners, you guys that are business owners, you ladies business owners, why do you make decisions to grow? Based on sound business decisions, or what you guys are learning in college and everything about, why you grow. I'm wanting to sell my business. Maybe you want to buy my business. Let me tell you though, agency owners or business owners that make decisions on good sound principles without factoring in the ACA may have a rude awakening. Let me give you an example. We got hypothetical, we got Mountaintop Resort, Golf Course Lodge and Spa, has 49 full-time employees, provides no QHP. All right, any problem? No problem. They have no penalty, right? Now, let's say business picks up and we need to hire somebody on the golf course or somebody in the spa, whatever, and we hire number 50, Mr. and Miss 50, for the entire 12 months, and we do not provide insurance. We did this without really factoring this in. Look what this one employee cost us if just one gets a subsidy. This better be factored in business decisions now. So how does it work? Obviously, as your income comes down from 400, your chance of a subsidy goes up. Obviously, if you're a part-time employee, there's not going to be any issues you'll see in a second. Look at what the average subsidy, so says the Congressional Budget Office, is going to be. Folks, we got a lot of money over here in my imaginary dumpster. The CBO says the average subsidy is going to be about $5,500. We're going to be doing a lot of subsidizing, a lot of premiums are going to get some assistance, as you'll see. Now, from a standpoint of calculating these part-time, the penalties are only calculated on our full-time. No penalty on a part-time. And folks, you're going to see the new normal. A lot of people are going to have 2 part-time jobs and no benefits. That's going to be the new normal in employment today. But you do not have to provide anything. But as you can see with my example with Joe's Burgers, a part-timer can certainly create an issue. But if no full-time receives a subsidy, only part-timers, no problem. The problem comes in if full-timers get a subsidy. Now, let me go ahead and show you how to solve the problem with the second scenario. So if you don't provide insurance and you're a large employer, how you solve it is never have more than 30 FTEs. How do you solve it if you are a large employer to keep from having a penalty? Well, let's read what it says there. It says, first of all, you're under 400% FPL. At first glance, you think you're going to be eligible for a subsidy. Second thing there, it says, does the employer provide a plan that pays at least 60% of health expenses for the typical population? We all go, huh? What does that mean? Is it a QHP? Is it a broad enough plan? That's the best way to think about it. And I guarantee you, Coventry and Blue Cross, they've got that nailed. That's not going to be an issue. And then here's the last one. Is the employee required premium? All right, so now, Chris, you're going to have to pay some premium. I'm paying the most, you're paying the little. What she is paying, is it deemed unaffordable? What does unaffordable mean? If it exceeds 9.5% of her income for her coverage, not family, not dependent. So if she has to pay greater than 9.5% of her income for her coverage, it is unaffordable. She can then run to the exchange and get a subsidy. If I pay enough of your premium, you can't go to the exchange. You can go, but you can't get any subsidy. That's the basis. You'll see some examples coming. Yes?
Now, we're just talking about the employer mandate right now.
This is the employer mandate.
2015, not 2014, right?
No, this is 2014 right now. This is the rule. Just notice the red star. There is no penalty tagged to an employer until 15. This is what the rule says, though. It is still there. The good point. The penalty to an employer has been delayed 1 year. But this is what the rule says. But the employers are going to want to start doing these calculations. That's why a lot of people are looking at doing some part-timers now, because they want to get primed up so that when they get there in 15, they're there. So let's take a look to see if her premium is affordable. Let's take a look at an example here. So we just say we got Sarah's annual salary is $40,000. Her husband's salary is also $40,000. So here they are at $80,000. They're a family of 4. Okay, are they eligible for a subsidy? Yes, it's why. Yes, but why? They're under 94.2. Very good. Now, Sarah's insurance is through, she has a QHP through her employer. Your plan covers everybody, spouse as well as dependents, and the annual cost of just yours is $400 a month. Now, your employer pays 90% of this premium. Okay, so 90% of Sarah's premium, so it's $400 a month. Employer is paying $360 a month. Look what's left over for her to pay. She's going to pay $40 a month. She pays 100% of family members, spouse and dependents. So, is she eligible for a subsidy? The answer is no, because what she has to pay is deemed affordable. If you had to pay greater than 9.5%, then there'd be some issues, and you can go and get a subsidy in that situation. Everybody understand how that works? So how do you solve the problem? If you provide insurance and you have a large employer, pay enough of the premium. That's how it works. Of just hers. You don't have to do dependent or spouse. Now, when we say 9.5%, understand as your income goes down, the 9.5% goes down. So if we're at 300%, we're still at 9.5%. But if your income is at 150%, now you can see it's at 4%. So it's a little bit different calculations there. Let's see how these subsidies work. Let's say that we've got Jimmy, he's a bartender at Beach Grill. And Beach Grill, all right, so you own Beach Grill, you have 15 employees. Now, is he a large employer or a small employer? He's small. Any chance of a penalty in any scenario? None. All right. Jimmy is single, his W-2 shows $34,000, which is 300% FPL. Now, at 300%, he's eligible for a subsidy. But let's look at 4 scenarios here. First of all, you don't provide a QHP. Jimmy can go to the marketplace or the exchange. He can go online. He can file for a subsidy. It's going to cover some portion of the premium. He can pick the bronze or the gold or whichever plan he wants. He pays part. Subsidy pays part. No harm, no foul. No chance of a penalty to you because you're under 50. Secondly, you provide a plan of insurance, but let's just say it's a mini-med. It's a little plan of insurance that provides $50,000 of coverage. It is not a QHP. Under the law, it is deemed as if you did not offer anything, same exact thing. So Jimmy goes to the exchange and he can get his subsidy, but once again, no problem to you. Now let's change it up. You do provide a qualified health plan, and it's a bronze plan, and you pay 70% of the premium. Jimmy winds up, when we do the calculation, he is having to pay 15% of his income for that premium. That is deemed as unaffordable, is it not? Because now then he's having to pay greater than 9.5%. So in that scenario, he can go and he can get whichever plan he wants. He can get a subsidy, but once again, he does not tag you with a penalty because you're under 50. Fourth scenario, you provide a bronze plan, you pay 90% of the premium, and when we do the math, Jimmy is only paying 8% of his income for himself. And he says, wait a minute, I want a better plan. I want a gold plan. And he says, I am going to go to the exchange and get me a gold plan. Sorry, Jimmy, the premium that you're having to pay is deemed affordable. He is not eligible for any subsidy in that situation. Now take a look at the last line here. Even if the employer had a 50 or more, this employee wanted to leave and go get a subsidy, he can't get a subsidy, he can't tag you with a penalty. Why? Two things. You provided a QHP and the premium was deemed affordable, and he cannot go get a subsidy. Any questions on that? Yes?
What if Jimmy's got a family and he doesn't contribute to that premium?
Good question. What if Jimmy's got a family? Hold that for a few slides. I'm going to touch on that because we got a little issue called the family glitch we're going to talk about. Okay? How many of you have heard of the family glitch? We're going to talk about that. Good question, though. All right, from a standpoint of some of the reforms that we've got, the shop, you guys here are getting the shop moving. I'm not sure how broad it's going to be or whatever. The feds threw money out to have a shop, a small business health exchange set up for all the businesses to be able to use, but we ran out of money, and so they basically on a national basis shut it down, but a handful of states like yours have set up a shop. What is an exchange? Let's talk about what the exchange itself is. I'd like for you to maybe think of it as Priceline.com. Many of you have gone on Priceline or Expedia and you've booked a flight, you've booked a hotel. Same thing. Now some of you are going, well, I'm not that good at that www stuff. Well, you need to find you a 13-year-old. Okay? They just know how to do it. So it's where you're going to be able to go and shop online. It is not going to be a brick and mortar building. You can go in and get you a cup of coffee and wait to see somebody. Nope, it's not going to be that way. That's not the format that is set up. All right? There's your states. Your state, my state have said, nope, not going to do it. So we got 27 states that do not have an exchange. So we have defaulted to the feds. They're going to run it. What's the goal? Provide health care, affordable health care. And a lot of people are beginning to see premiums and they're saying, well, it's not affordable. And I'm going to show you one in just a second. It's kind of personal to me. But anyway, that's another matter. Now, if you get a lot of subsidy, I guess it can be affordable in that situation. But what are we going to take? We're going to take people irrespective of their health conditions, aren't we? And yes, it's going to be a nice managed retail competition because when you have your carriers right there selling a standardized plan, you can go and I can go and we can look at it and say, well, I want to fly Delta, I want to fly Southwest. That's what we're looking at. I want to book me a room over here. So it's no different than booking rooms or airlines. So you're going to have standardized plans, standardized language and everything. There are your 4 plans. That's what they're known as, your metal plans. Yeah, you're going to have carriers sell in and out of the exchange, and originally you guys had 3 of them, and I think you was telling me last night that one of them, I went and looked at it this morning, your other one, what was it, Carolina? First Carolina said no, they were only going to do 5 counties anyway, and so they got out. So you're down to what, the Blue Cross and Coventry, is that the 2? Okay. All right, so there's your states. So you can line through First Carolina, they bailed. There's some premiums that I found online that Blue Cross Blue Shield from a standpoint. So if you got a 40-year-old and you see a bronze plan, silver plan, you can see what the premiums range. That's what the Blues put out that I was able to find. 60-year-old, obviously it goes up a fair amount, obviously, in that situation. And when we finish, I'll be glad to put this back up if you'd like to see it. What I do want to show you, though, is the differences in percentage of increase. This is a very good map to take a look at. If you download the PowerPoint that the association has for you, you can go to this link at the bottom and see what the premiums are looking at. So you can see you guys on an average might be looking as much as 267% increase in some situations. There's a number of situations of where it's going to be, especially at various ages, going to have a huge difference. And I'll put this back up later if you want to see that web path. Do want to take, you're familiar with how the application looks, or maybe if you haven't been online, you haven't seen it. But that's what it looks like. You go and fill this out. Some of you need to get on the golf course. I understand all about the tee times. See, you play good now. And so if you guys that need to leave, because I'm going to run a little long, but I still have a few slides. And if you need to leave, fine. If you want me to stop, I'll stop. But otherwise, I'll keep going unless you say stop. All right, applying for the subsidy. Let's see how the subsidy is going to work. All right, think of my tax dumpster. We've been filling it with a bunch of tax over here. All right, here we go. So you go, you're eligible for a subsidy. Now, how would this work? Let's say that she's self-employed. or you work for a small business that doesn't offer insurance. Be a perfect place for you to go get a subsidy. So you can go to the exchange. You're going to complete the application, typically online. Now, if you complete it online or in paper, it is going to go to 3 sources, folks. They're going to check you out on Social Security. They're going to make sure you're not a terrorist. And they're also going to be taking a look at Internal Revenue Service. Now, in the 27 states that is run by the Fed, we're going to have documentation of income, employer. So you're over here working for him. You're going to need to document that if he's providing you insurance, what is his federal ID number? I don't know how you feel about that or not, but that's what's going to be required on there. In the handful of states that have set up their own exchange, they do not have the mechanism tied down yet to be able to verify your income. So guess what they're going to do? This was announced at 4:30 on Friday afternoon, July the 5th. We're going to take your word for it. So put down what your income is now. The following Wednesday, the IRS put out a little bulletin that says, "Oh, but we're going to come back and audit you, so you better play right with us." So you go through the online application, you get the approval. You're then going to select the plan, bronze, whatever, and then you're going to get your subsidy from the dumpster. You pay the difference. I heard on one of the radio shows the other morning where somebody had tried to do some online, and then when he got to the place of wanting, got pretty far into it, they wanted his credit card number, and he was doing an online chat. He says, "Why do you want my credit card number?" He says, "Well, because you're going to be responsible for the balance of this." He says, What do you mean? I thought this was free." There's a lot of people out there think this is free, folks, and it's not free. Family glitch. This goes a little bit to your question earlier. She is married, so we got a husband and wife. He's a one-person contractor. He's a drywall guy. You work here for me. I provide insurance to you. Now, you guys, when you look at your family income, it's below 400%. You're eligible for an FPL subsidy. I provide insurance. It's a QHP, and what she pays is not unaffordable. So you pay less than 9.5% of your income for your coverage. What about him? Well, as you're going to see in just a slide or two, we got a rule now that says I don't have to provide insurance to him. I got to provide it to the dependents, but not for him. He now says, "Okay, well, I'm under 400%. I don't have insurance. I'm going to go to the exchange and get me coverage." Fine, you can go to the exchange and get you coverage. Guess what? No subsidy. That's called the family glitch, folks. So go right there, just do a little in Google, just type in USA Today family glitch, and you'll see the article that was posted just a few weeks ago. Yes?
So regardless of what the premium is to add a spouse on, that doesn't matter?
Does not matter. Good question. So whatever the premium is to add him, it does not matter in that situation. I am not responsible for adding him. I do not have to pay anything. How many of you have been here in like the University of Virginia said we're not going to extend coverage to spouses? How about FedEx? Yeah, we got a number of businesses that says we're not going to extend coverage to spouses. This is a major problem right there. And I don't know if it's going to be solved or not, but it is a real severe problem. He cannot get a subsidy. All right. When you apply for your coverage, obviously we opened up this year. It's going to go for until approximately, I think the last day of March is this year. So it's going to go from October 1 all the way through March. Next year it's going to be until right at the end of the year. Now, what if you want to make changes during the calendar year? And I know some of you guys need to leave, but I'm going to keep going until y'all just start throwing stuff at me. What if you want to make changes during the calendar year? You've only got 5 ways you can make a change. And I have given it the nice little creative, easy word to remember, MAD-MD, okay? So that's the 5 things that if it takes place, you get married, you adopt, somebody dies that was covered, there's a maternity situation, or there's a divorce. You can then change with what's called a special enrollment. Other than that, you cannot. Now, when you go on the website and you download the PowerPoint and everything, I've got a 9-page thing that I added on that was in a book I found. It's a great read. I give credit to where it comes from. It's 10 things you need to know about an exchange. So I highly recommend you go get that and read it. It's a very good overview of things regarding how the exchange works. Delivery system. How many of you are familiar with a term called the transitional reinsurance fee? Anybody heard of the transitional reinsurance fee? It's always been in the law, but it was to be determined what it was going to be. Well, in December of last year, they came out with a definition of how much it would be. Every policy starting next year, your individual, your groups, everybody is going to contain a $63 per head enrollment fee. Works out to be $525 a month. The second year, I think it drops to $46, and the third year, I think it drops to $23. But it's going to be ongoing for 3 years. It's going to raise approximately $25 billion. The small portion is going to go to the ACA to help with various plans. The large portion is going to go on a pro rata basis, though, to the insurance carriers. Because guess what, folks? We're going to be able to ask any medical questions. We're going to take people, no questions asked. So this is going to help buffer them a little bit from a standpoint of taking it on the chin of taking people that are, let's say that you are 6 or 7 months pregnant right now, and you sign up for coverage, you have no insurance. Your coverage goes into effect 1/1/14. Are we going to cover to deliver that baby? Yes, we will. Absolutely. No pre-existing. So that's what's going to take place. Let me give you an example. I want you to go type this in, another good site to go visit. Go to PPACA Transitional Reinsurance Fee Crawford, and you'll bring up this very informative posting that Crawford Advisors put on their site, and it's out there on Google. And what I want to point out is that the $63 is per head. Per head. Now let's think about, and as I say, when we get all finished, I'll bring up any of the slides, go back, and if you want to write down some of these sites I've got for you. Let's take a look. Where my brother works, they have 176 employees. Currently, they pay 80% of their premiums for the employee only on their self-insured plan. They have 164 people currently on the plan, 103 spouses, 109 dependents. They also have 11 that are on COBRA qualified beneficiaries and a few retirees. That is 496 heads, folks, times $63. Where my brother works, there's going to be an add-on of an additional $31,000 next year. Now, anybody know how many employees Delta Airlines has? 80,000. That is just over $5 million on this fee that's added to their policy next year. Whether it's an insured or self-insured, makes no difference. It's added on next year. Guarantee issue, obviously we've talked about that. Guaranteed rates. The only rating threshold, folks, we're going to have is age. So young ones pay less than the old ones. Where you live, family composition, so a family of 3, family of 1, whatever, and then the tobacco use. We can have a maximum surcharge of 1.5. I hold in my hand my brother. He was not too happy Saturday morning when we had breakfast. He gave me a copy of his, I'm just going to use what he referred to it, and it actually says it here, the Obama Renewal Notice. And I don't use the word Obamacare is what he called it. I don't use that terminology, but that's what it says in his letter. And he showed the old premium and the new premium. And thankfully, he is a non-tobacco. His premium went up 73% for he and his wife. Now, if he follows 3 things, an assessment program and a number of things through nurses and various things he does, it'll drop it down so that his maximum increase will only be 42%. But if you were a tobacco user, it's going to be pretty ugly. And so a bunch of the tobacco users out there in the shop where he's head of purchasing are not too happy about it, but that's the way it is. And the only way to get a subsidy, all right, so you get a subsidy, you can't get a subsidy on the tobacco rate-up portion. Can't do it unless you're in a stop smoking program. That doesn't say you graduate from it. It doesn't say that you're top of your class. It said you enroll in a stop smoking program at work. And that's it.
How do they know if you smoke or not?
How do they know if you smoke or not? Next slide. 2 slides. Let's consider this possibility. Husband and wife, no dependent, $100,000. Obviously not eligible for a subsidy. Both tobacco users, and the carrier uses the full 1.5. Look what their premium would be. They got 3 options, folks. They can pay the premium. They can shop the marketplace. Now, do we have some carriers not taking a full 1.5? Yeah. Do we have some that's not doing any? Yep. United Health in Illinois is filed no tobacco surcharge. Or they forego insurance and pay the penalty, $1,000, but they're looking at a bankruptcy in that situation. How do we determine tobacco use? All right. First of all, it can be state specific. California is the only state I have found that said, nope, not going to do it in our state. Would we expect any different? I don't know. You can do less than that. So a carrier can do less than 1.5 if they want to. Now, the definition of we're not going to get your analysis specs, folks. We're not going to do that. We're going to ask you. Now, if I ask you, do you use tobacco? You might say, why do you want to know? Well, if you do, we're going to have a 50% surcharge. Put down no. I don't see that happening. I'm sure. Is there any fraud provision here? Haven't found it. Haven't found it. In life insurance, we know there is, but not here that I found. But there's a definition. All right, regular usage and time last use. So maximum of 4 in a week. So I guess that's for chews, for smokes, I don't know, within the last 6 months. That's their definition. But buried deep in the law was this absence. There is no questions or surcharge regarding marijuana or cocaine. So it could be you're smoking the wrong thing. Just speculating. Okay, we're going to get through this real quick. Everybody's got to have coverage, folks. Nobody's exempt. There is no exemptions. Private, charities, universities, you name it. Everybody's got to provide insurance or falls under the law. What are the types of coverage you've got to have? There are the 10 required coverages you must have. You cannot exclude it out, folks. Now, there's 2 of them up there that my wife and I do not need. And there's some of you in this room you may not need. My wife and I do not need number 4. That is not necessary in our family structure. And since we have no kids, we don't need number 10. But can we buy a plan starting next year without those coverages? And the answer is no. How many of you that write homeowners insurance have gotten a call? They call them and says, I've been reading my policy. Don't you just love that conversation? And it says on here, it says other structures. It says other structures. I got $30,000. I looked at my backyard. I don't have another structure. Take that off. So you know what we're talking about there, okay? Who does not have to buy it? So we do have exceptions to the rule. We got a few handful of exceptions here. American Indians, they have their own coverage through the federal government. Those incarcerated obviously covered. So we got a few exceptions that do not have to buy it. Recently announced by HHS, here we go. I cover you. I have to cover your dependents. But I don't have to pay a dime for them. They just have to be on the plan. But I do not have to extend coverage to your spouse. That's in the rule. We've talked to, this one. We're about to finish, folks. I know I'm running late, and I'm very sorry, but I'm fine? Okay. All right. This one is, if you haven't went over the edge yet, this one might get you over the edge. How many of you are aware of the grace periods in the policy? There's probably only 1 or 2 of you in here. All right. If you get a subsidy, so you get a subsidy. This only applies if you get any subsidy. You will have a 90-day grace period, not a 30-day grace period like everybody else. Let me show you what the insurance companies have to do. All right, so you've missed your premium. We have to notify HHS that you have no coverage, and also we're going to provide coverage for you for the first 30. Third bullet point, we're going to notify your doctors when they start sending bills. So now you've had your appendectomy. We're going to notify them you're very likely not going to have any coverage. We're going to deny the claim. So basically, they are on the hook. We notify you that you're delinquent. We continue to collect your subsidies. But when we finally finish, we've got to give back month 2 and 3 subsidies back to the federal government. Then we're going to notify of termination. Then this one will get you. Then the insurance carrier then must determine if there is any disability which makes definition under the American with Disabilities Act that might have caused this, and if so, we have to make reasonable accommodations, and I cannot find what that means. Do you think this will impact the carrier's MLR and their bottom line? There's no question. If you print it out what we've got there for you, you'll see the path at the bottom where you can go and bring up this article. Be careful on this one, folks. Some of you have probably thought about this. Well, we got Mom and Dad Inc. Mom and Dad Inc. are sitting out there and listening to Jerry talking and go, we got 60 employees. We got a mess. We don't offer coverage. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to switch. We're going to have our accountant and our legal people switch us to 2 corporations. Mom Inc. 30, Dad Inc. 30. We're home free. No, you're not, folks. You fall under what's known as the control groups rule, may very well be looking at a $500,000 penalty. You better get good advice from your accountant, your attorney, and if they recommend you do it, get a letter saying you're guaranteeing this, as well as you get a copy of their E&O policy. All right. So, last thing before we end, what's the rules on employers? If you're under 50, any chance of a penalty? Any at all? None. If you're 50 or more, you see here we've got somebody at the bottom right in the middle there that had 100 employees, provided no coverage. All it took was one. She got a subsidy, and she tagged that 100 employee business with a $140,000 penalty. If you do provide coverage, make sure it's a QHP and pay enough of the premium. End of discussion. And that's how it's going to work. All right. We're going to go on through, go to the last one. We still got some court action looking at it, but that kind of touches on it. Any question? I'm going to be around here if you've got any questions. Yes, sir?
All right, say you have 50 or 49 employees and you have to hire a couple people, and you go through a staffing agency.
Okay, what if you go through a PEO, a staffing agency? The PEO industry's got some issues there. Because who is issuing the W-2? They are. They are. So that's why the PEOs are going to be looking to make sure that they have enough insurance. And if they have enough insurance there, there's no problem. And they pay enough of the premiums. Yeah.
It doesn't go on to the actual employee.
No. It goes to it's who issues the W-2s where the problem is. Other questions? Yes?
The difference of a spouse and a dependent, I wasn't thinking right. You don't have to provide coverage to the spouse, but you do have to provide coverage for the dependent.
If it is your legal dependent, and so there may be years that's not your dependent being claimed, the next year it's the other spouse, yeah, you've got to provide. Now, what if both husband and wife are covered? One of the two's got to provide coverage. And we'll just have to get some determination. So we're covering the dependent on her. He's under a group plan, we're not on, so just got to get some determination. That's what the government's saying. Yes?
So you have a plan there, other people provide a QHP, pays 100% of the premium. Currently, dependents are eligible for coverage. But the premium for dependents is 100% of the employee's responsibility.
That is correct.
And it's
Dependent's going to be 100%. Employer can pay, but don't have to.
all right, let's say that it's real high, and they want to go, the family wants to go to the exchange. They're not eligible for it.
Good question. So she's going to pay. I'm going to pay an affordable amount of her premium, and the kids are on the plan, and she's paying the full freight. She wants to take them off and go to the exchange. She can go. She just can't get a subsidy because what? I am paying her portion that's affordable. That's the family glitch we was talking about.
All right, so can the employer say that we don't extend, well, you said he has to extend the coverage to the dependents.
Does not have to do it to the spouse.
All right, so is it in the employer and possibly the employee's best interest to make a plan change and say we don't extend it to the spouses so that then they can go to the exchange for that?
Well, no, because that goes back to the family glitch issue here. What he's talking about is, okay, we're going to have a plan like University of Virginia has done. We're not going to cover spouses, but University of Virginia's got probably a couple thousand employees, and they're paying enough of their self-funded plan, I would assume, that what's left over for her to pay is not unaffordable. And since it's not unaffordable there, he can't get an exchange. He can't get a subsidy through the exchange. That's the family glitch issue. That's a real problem. And you're going to see a lot of people going, wait a minute, spouse is not covered under the employer's plan? Nope. Where am I going to get coverage? You can go to the exchange. No subsidy. And they're going to see those full premiums and they're going to pass out, folks. That's going to be an issue. So bring up that USA Today Family Glitch article and read it. It's a very informative article. All right?
There's no difference whether the employer says we will or won't extend it to the
Good point. It makes no difference whether the employer says I will cover spouse or not cover. It doesn't. You can cover them if you want to, because when I pay an affordable amount of her premium, we're going to take out of her paycheck his premium. And they're going to go, oh my gosh, I want to go shop and see if I can get a better deal. Fine, you can go, but you're not going to get any subsidy. There's nothing that says he has to stay on the plan. He can bail out and go down the street and get another coverage.
They can't say we're going to cover no dependents.
Cannot say no dependents. Now the exception would be she's covered under my plan, he's covered under your plan. The dependent's going to be covered somewhere. That's required by law. All right? Anything else? Yes?
I have just a question about the enrollment. You said obviously starts October 1st for the January 1st effective date.
Correct.
After January, any time, or is there like an enrollment period?
Well, the first year, your open enrollment is October 1 through March 31. After that, it appears it's going to be from October 1 to December the 30th, or they're right at there. But you're going to have, that's your only open enrollment period.
Okay, so all the definitions of the life-changing
Right.
reasons, what about if your employer is a small employer and has you on a health plan and says, you know what, I'm done, I'm not offering it, and you're up in June, let's say.
If you're on an employer's plan, they bail out, they're not going to have coverage anymore. We're still going to have COBRA, but that's only for groups of 20 or more on the federal, and most states take it down much smaller, so that's still going to be there. Can you switch over to another plan? Yes, you can.
What if a family of 5 or 6, both the husband and the wife, they've got their coverage somewhere, but neither one of them are willing to pay for their children's coverage? So the children, although they've been offered it to them, nobody's paying for it. They don't have it.
Well, they're in violation of the requirement, and they're going to get hit with the penalty.
Okay, the family will get hit with the penalty because they got
That is correct. Yeah. 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 Lots of fun and games, folks.
So the employers now will have to weigh the cost of the penalty versus the cost.
Yeah, and weighing the cost of the penalty versus weighing the cost of insurance. Penalty is way down here versus way up here for premiums. And that's what a lot of them look at. For the first 2 or 3 years, then it gets pretty close to parity then. All right? Thanks much for your questions. Appreciate it.